in, folks. It's the week 17 edition of Waiver Wire Show, and hopefully, like myself and Jeremy, you managed to sneak into a few championships this week because we got big money on the line. I'm quite excited. How are you doing, Jeremy? How's your performance looking?
Yeah, fuck, man. I was so good. Quarters were great. I was 8-1. I had 4 or 5 buys, and then I just got decimated this week. 6-7. So moving on to 6 finals, which is awesome. Out of about 27 leagues, but the biggest problem is like those like losses by just a couple of points where you left points on the bench and just the wrong decision kind of turned it terrible. So just feeling those hard this week, but you know, whatever. Such is fantasy football, right? How about you?
And yeah, I'm using a spare bedroom here, Aaron. We're cutting it short here. I don't got a room, so I picked a spare bedroom to just hop into. Because my daughter's out there with my family and everything like that. So, yeah, you want some chaos in your life, throw my daughter on the screen. She'd probably be naked running around enjoying herself. But, yeah, for myself, it was a very interesting week. Like, I can't. So, a few of them went well, a few of them didn't, but it's kind of fantasy, right? You just live with what happens. Put the best lineup out, and you go, pray to the fantasy football gods. Sometimes they're kind, sometimes they're not so kind. And it works out. Oh, yeah. Imagine if you went up against, like, Flacco, Cooper, like, Pickens, Puka, like, Brees, all those guys, it's like just good luck. You're not winning that week, no matter how good your team is. So that's
imagine having Flacco and Brees and Njoku and losing by a point. Just pain. But
I can hear the tilt in your voice.
This is it, man. Oh, I was so angry this morning. I woke up because the games were on pretty late for me. Watched the 40-minute replays of the Giants game and the the late game, the Ravens and Lamar. And I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance. And then you just go look at the lineup and you caught the wrong end of a few like nail biters. Hey, we're still in the championship. We're still looking to pick up some guys and try and win and close out some of these leagues. So
yeah, so let's start out with these week 17 hot topics. We're gonna use Aaron's actual article. We're gonna pop that up since he's not here. We're gonna use him in spirit for this one. So
that's it. Let's rip it apart.
We'll start off with quarterbacks. As you can see, the king, Mr. Lee himself, Joe Flacco's at the top. I don't know why. 36%. What are we doing here, folks? The guy's chucking it, YOLO bombing it. That's what I'm saying. He's literally giving you 20 to 30 points every game. It's just fantastic. Doesn't matter interceptions. He's immune. He doesn't care. He's just incredible. Obviously,
I was actually just searching him in Sleeper. I was like, why isn't he coming up? Because I typed in monster instead of Flacco into the Sleeper search bar. He's been awesome.
Oh yeah, he's been great. I picked him up in one of the leagues, and I'm like, I love life with Joe Flacco. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
league winner.
I feel it.
League winner, baby.
Yeah, for real. Let's pause up. I hope you do too, Ryan. It has been like the weird thing about Christmas is it's like you think it's kind of like a mini holiday. It's not. It's just nonstop chaos. Everything's going on. By the end of Christmas, you're just like, all right, I need to decompress because so much stuff has happened. All the events, all the things. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I love it. It's just there's a lot that goes into it. So this is the after effects, as you can tell from me. Like your boy's not feeling so great at the moment, but we are powering through. It is what it is. So we got obviously the top options. We got Stafford at 74%, Carr, Russell Wilson. Any one of those guys, like if they're available, that's awesome. You can go with those guys. When you get down to the more medium tier guys, we have Baker and Geno, and it gets a little more matchup dependent. And then we have our Mr. Elite, our league winner, Joe Flacco at 32%, the Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, who, interestingly enough, I almost started Aiden O'Connell. Thankfully, I did not because that would have been a disaster. But that's where one of my teams was at, just to give you a heads up. I was like, Aiden O'Connell? I was like, no, I can't do it. And then the real deep dart throw options, we got DeVito, Nick Mullins, and Mason Rudolph. If you're looking at this list, Jeremy, who stands out to you of guys you want to start in this week?
It's so hard because Flacco absolutely been dominant. He has taken over the role of elite volume play from Sam Howell, who just fell off the map, who is trending towards most pass attempts since Tom Brady. But the problem with Flacco is that even though he's going to have a ton of volume, and he's going to put up fantasy points for you, he's playing the Jets in week 17, and it's just so hard to get behind a Flacco play when you have some of these other options in tremendously better matchups. The Jets are just they're so good defending the pass. They're stifling. You got Sauce there who's going to lock down Amari enough. Amari's not going to do what he did last week again, not against that Jets secondary. So, I want to say Flacco. I just can't with the horrible matchup. I mean, somebody like Geno Smith, man. Geno Smith, I love this week against Pittsburgh. That defense managed to turn it around a little bit last week, but they're still going to get gashed, right? That Seattle offense is going to move the ball. Everybody's healthy. I guess Walker is healthy. He's playing anyway. But that Seattle offense should move the ball against Pittsburgh. I really love Geno and how he's looking and how they should go. And then stay in the flames with Baker Mayfield, right? That New Orleans hasn't really been anything that's been particularly scary with Marshawn Lattimore out. So, I'm staying in the flames with Baker there. Those are the two I love. And then I don't see him. Oh, I do see him at the bottom there. It's Nick Mullins. He's throwing picks left and right. Nick Mullins is, but I don't really care. That Green Bay secondary, it'll depend for me if Jair Alexander plays, but I think he's likely out. Is he IR'd?
I'm not actually sure.
Done. Yeah,
he might be. I'm not 100% sure either way.
But since he left the lineup as well, you can throw all over Green Bay. So those are three guys that I really like. And then of course you have Matthew Stafford, who is looking like a champion, and the Giants they're okay. So I like some of those Lester's options. But if Stafford's there, he's probably my number one.
Yeah, I think if you can get your hands on Russ against the Chargers, that's a primo matchup, and it's really hard to just turn that down. We saw it was looking rough. Like I was watching that Christmas game with Russ, and I was like, my team is going to face plant, and then all of a sudden they turned it on a couple touchdowns at the end, and I was like, okay, we're back, we're good. But yeah, it was treacherous, and he's going against the Chargers defense. We've seen it; they just can't stop anybody. They're really, really bad. So I think, like you're saying, Stafford, obviously, I think Russ is up there too. If you can get either one of those guys, which seems unlikely at this point in the season, but if they are available, those will be my top guys with you. And then, like you're talking about, you can go Geno, Baker, both have good matchups. You roll with it. You really want to go struggle with it with Flacco. I think, interestingly enough, the team that Mullins is playing, if you're going against Jordan Love, I think Love is an interesting one too. If he's available, he might be, he may not be, but he's been on fire, and he had a bad matchup last week. It did not matter. Jordan Love just absolutely torched the Panthers. So
and no weapons.
Yeah,
he did with no weapons. He's insane.
He's been playing great. So, it's some good options this week where you should be able to find someone you could stream. So, you may be worried about it, but you just kind of got to trust your gut with some of these few calls because we're splitting hairs with a few of these guys, right? With Mullins, he might get benched. You don't know with Nick Mullins just because he's literally just doing the most bonker stuff quarterback play I've ever seen. He'll throw routes. I think it was like a dig route that he threw that is literally double covered, guy in front and back. He still chucked it and right to the defender. And I think one of the PFF guys was like, "What are you doing, Nick Mullins?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just he's a wild quarterback." So you can just live him down.
Meanwhile, we saw some of those catches Justin Jefferson made last week. So that's the other end of the spectrum, right? Is you got weapons on some of these cases that'll bail out some of these guys. But I agree with you. Like Russell Wilson, the Chargers are horrendous. They've given up on the season. They kind of tried to do a little something last week, but with Staley gone, but they also just cut bait with a lot of Staley guys, so they're kicking dudes off the team. They jettison the coach, so it's over there. So Russ is a great option.
Yeah, and I will say the one guy that's not on this list who might be. Oh no, never mind. I saw him. He's Derek Carr. We talked about him this morning. I was like, Derek Carr just popped up. I was like, where is he? I was like, oh, he's top of the list. Duh. He gets Tampa Bay. He's the other guy who, if he's available, that's a really good matchup, and you can take advantage of it. We didn't think Carr had a ceiling, and he's like, hey, guess what? My ceiling showed out, and it was beautiful last week. So if you want to stay hot with Carr, I think that's another option. Is there anybody else, at quarterback, you would target besides the guys on this list?
Absolutely not. I don't want anything to do with a lot of the fringe options if they're not on this. Keep an eye out for what's going on with DeVito if he's benched, or what's going to happen. Tyrod Taylor could be an option, but you're really talking about super flex leagues at that point. But you were talking about Derek Carr. I don't know that I want to jump into the Derek Carr experience, but we'll talk about it a little later. I will ride a few of his weapons in the passing game for sure this week on waivers.
Yeah, like it's you just kind of have to accept how frustrating the Derek Carr experience is with being a manager. I have him in one league. I literally never play him. He just sits on my bench. Can't trade him. Can't do anything. He's like a typical roster clogger. It's just it's not joyful. There's no joy in the Derek Carr experience. Let me tell you. Yeah, I feel you, Aaron. Yeah, it's what happens. It's like right. Sometimes I don't want to do it, and like if you have CMC, honestly, like. If someone offered me Bijan for CMC, it's like a conversation, at least at this point. But next year CMC is going to absolutely just wreck the world again. So like this is the dynasty market we have to take it. So I get it. Like ideally it should be Bijan. It should be, play it long term. But as a CMC manager, it's so hard to give him up because he's the biggest edge of fantasy football. Like there's nobody better. So like I get it. But yeah, it would be a long, hard thought process because I just got eliminated with one of my CMC teams. And if the Bijan team came to me, I'd be like, I don't know. Yeah. I should take it. I probably should take it, but I'd be like, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. I mean, elite situation for CMC as well, right? So it's just a complete package. That said, I'd probably go with Bijan. Just age, right? You just want that those more years.
Right.
Similar,
you're saving
hopefully similar production.
Like 6 years, I think you're trimming off. So yeah, it's quite a long shot of years. Mm-hmm. All right, speaking of running backs, let's kind of jump into running backs. There's Ty Chandler, who the photo we did not really do much from Ty Chandler. I was expecting a blow performance from him personally. He literally got the touchdown and didn't do anything else. So it just seemed like a weird game script. I don't know how much we want to read into that, but he's the guy in the backfield. Madison was playing. He didn't play much of a role, so you can ride it again if you want to. But I think some of the other options here are interesting, like Ezekiel Elliott for New England, 77%. He's a smash rostered one guy. Jaylen Warren, he doesn't have the ceiling that Zeke has, but he's a solid floor play. Like you get him, you know what you're getting. There's Ty Chandler at 71%. We can drop down to the median options. There's Zach Charbonnet, Roschon Johnson, Jerick McKinnon, all in that 50 to 60% range. Of these top two tiers, is there anyone of this group that you particularly prefer, Jeremy?
I don't think you can trust Roschon. I guess so. I don't prefer him. Khalil Herbert just came out of nowhere with a really nice game, which I was kind of afraid of when I heard form was out. McKinnon, kind of same deal. We don't know what's happening with the health of any of those guys, including Pacheco, who I think was concussion, right? Got a nasty knee to the head during that game. So I'm probably looking at Ty Chandler. I just want to check the matchups again real quick. Chandler has Green Bay. It's not ideal, but it's not bad. And that Minnesota team, we know that defense can at least make it difficult for Jordan Love to score 100 touchdowns in that game. So they should keep it close, and Chandler should be involved. Alexander Mattison, 9% of snaps and 2 touches last game. So if you're curious how that's shaken out, last week they finally made the complete switch with Madison seemingly healthy. So I'm riding Chandler. And then, of course, the other one you mentioned was Zeke Elliott. The Patriots got nothing else to play for, but, Zeke has enough to play for. He's trying to stay in the league next year, right? And the Patriots winning. What are we doing here, guys? Come on. Like, we need a better draft pick. But that's against the Buffalo defense that has been a little bit better of late. So, yeah, I like probably Chandler, Zeke, and then, unless Walker is out, I'm steering clear of Charbonnet and the rest of these options here.
Yeah, that was one thing that worried me about Roschon and that whole backfield situation is it's just been all up and down all year. No, we saw right before the bye, Roschon saw 70% of snaps. They come back, he sees like 20% of snaps. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? What's happening? And then they finally bring back Herbert the last few weeks. It's a cluster. I really don't want to trust it, particularly this is championship. This is where all the money is. I really don't want to put all the money on Roschon Johnson. Be like, all right, yes, we're rolling Roschon. So watch him go off for 30 points. And I'll be like an idiot. But that's just kind of is what it is with these guys. You want the sure thing. So I think for me personally, if you can get Elliott, we saw he had 11 targets last week. That's just money. I get it. Same. I trust his volume more than Warren's, and I like Chandler, but I want to see more from him. So if I was picking those top guys, I would have Elliott above them. And then it would basically, I'd shoot the shot with Chandler, because I know there's a chance he's like the entire backfield, whereas Warren's still splitting the work with Najee. It's just so difficult for him to hit that quote unquote ceiling that we need in these matchups, right?
Yep.
And then you get down, you could do Charbonnet. I really don't want to do that. McKinnon seems more interesting. It's a couple of these guys you just kind of have to watch the injury report. Same thing with Zeke. If Ramondre does come back, which he technically could, that would be the one thing that worries me. But like McKinnon, he's a solid play with if Pacheco is ruled out. You go Herbert, you really want to do that, or Zamir White if Jacobs is out again. I think that's the one. But Jacobs seemed really close, so he was a borderline game time decision. Like they went up right to the wire to play him. So I really don't think White's going to be the guy to play unless basically they just pack up the ship for the end of the season. I guess what we're not bringing Jacobs back, but outside of that, I really don't have interest in White. So I would need to hear in this upcoming week that Jacobs is out. They're like, all right, cool, we can fire up White again. Until then, I think the dart throw Chris Rodriguez. If you're really, really desperate with any one of these guys, I don't mind it. He's going to see the volume.
San Francisco, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, San Francisco is a weird matchup. Like, they're not the worst in the world. Like, they seem giving up points, So it's kind of just you're really scraping the barrel at this point if we're really down there. I think.
Yeah, my thought process with San Francisco is that the defense is good, but the issue is the offense is not nearly as bad as they were last night, and Washington defense is horrendous. So it's very likely to be an Antonio Gibson on the field as much as possible day. One guy who's not on this list, I just want to double check to make sure, who I really like. I mean, look, you're not trusting this guy, but you're only playing him if you absolutely have to. Maybe you're due to injury or whatever. Maybe stash him on your bench, and if you have to throw him in there, you do. But Jaleel McLaughlin in Denver looked electric this week. He was in there for his highest snap share since week 6. He had 25% of snaps, and he got 10 touches. Every time he touched the ball, he looked awesome. It seems like Peyton is realizing that he's a weapon, and Javonte just looks slow. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's still, a bit hampered by injury or just wearing down a little bit toward the end of the season. But not only are they working him in, but they need to work him in a little bit more. And the biggest thing there is they're playing, as we mentioned, the Chargers, right? So I could see a situation where they go up big and then they're looking to run out the clock. P. Ryan has been an option in the past, but they may want to see what they can, what they have in McLaughlin for next season in a bit of garbage time at their head.
Yeah, I think he's very much interesting one. Like you're talking about, Javonte has just been disappointing this year. Like it just has not been a good year for Javonte, and he's coming back from the injury. So like we kind of expected that, but like seeing it firsthand and throughout the year, he hasn't really gotten better, and that's the more like red flag would be where it's like, all right, what's the ceiling with this guy? How good's he going to be? And he just really hasn't done much for you. So I get it. You got to see what you got. And Sean Payton's always had a scat back like that, which Jaleel McLaughlin is. Like he's going to play a role in this offense. So I think we've seen weeks where he's taken a little bit more and gone back and forth, but overall, yeah, like I don't mind firing a dart. If you're desperate, if you need players to play, you need to chase something with it, like, yeah, go for it. You can definitely do worse in the deeper leagues. Like it's some of these leagues I'm in, there's just nothing available. Like these dynasty leagues, like, all right, man, I either got to make a trade if there's trade deadline is no there, or I got to just pick the waiver and hope it works out. So yeah, I'm 100% with you.
Cool.
Let's see. Fantasy Super Bowl, nice. So
yeah.
It depends.
Well, we're going to jump into it in a second, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to talk about wide receivers in a second, and then we can kind of hit your roster up too. If you like post your roster there, and we kind of give you what we're talking about. So we'll jump into wide receivers for a second. We'll go from there. Obviously, OBJ, top guy. He's at 71%. It's him, and it's 2 injured Packers, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. If either one of them is healthy, I'm very interested in those guys. I just don't know them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Christian Reed or Christian Watson. Jaden Reed's been like the guy that's kind of had a Deebo Samuel light role with Green Bay, where he gets some snaps on line scrimmage, he gets some end around, things of that nature, and it's worked out well for fantasy. It's just we're dealing with injuries, and of course, I mean OBJ's dealt with them his entire career, so it's a very fitting trio we have at the top. When we move down to like the 50 and 60% guys, we have Josh Downs, Joshua Palmer, and Noah Brown. So those are interesting matchups you can go with. We get down to like the kind of deeper. We're in the 40 to 30. We got Curtis Samuel, Demario Douglas, Wan'Dale Robinson, and the true dart throw options. We have Parker Washington, Demarcus Robinson, and Dontavian Wicks. What are your thoughts on these guys, Jeremy?
I'm just trying to pull up the stats for my guy, if I can find him here. I don't know why I can't find. It's impossible to find him on Sleeper. Demarcus Robinson, guys. Here's the thing, right? We have guys on this list who are injured or injury prone. We have guys on this list who are like Noah Brown or Josh Palmer who are benefiting from injury. Demarcus Robinson, everyone's healthy, and Matthew Stafford just keeps looking his way. He's been a wide receiver 2 at worst over the last month of the season in every single game. He scored a touchdown in every single game. He's averaging about 6 targets per game with some quick math right there. Demarcus Robinson, by far, to me, is the most reliable option here. And the fact that they're going into New York to play the Giants. I like that matchup for him, especially because he's the guy that you don't look to shut down on defense, right? The Giants have some decent secondary play there, including who's it, Bradbury, right? Who's capable of shutting down Kupp or Naku or whoever they put on. Everyone's going to eat there, but I like Robinson's chances to score another touchdown. He's the guy by far I want in my lineup over anyone else.
Yeah, he's very interesting. It's basically they've taken Tutu Atwell and replaced him with Demarcus Robinson the last few weeks, which I did not expect because Tutu Atwell's a round 2 guy. He's been good in the past. He's had some boot weeks earlier in the year, but they like this new offense. They've kind of shifted their entire offense. Credit Sean McVay for that because the offense looks so much better that they've done that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Demarcus Robinson looks good. So like as long as that roll is going to keep rolling with him, like you just got to trust it. Like he's been good the last couple of weeks, so I like firing him up too as well. Interesting enough, we have a question about the defense, and I'll pair it up with what I can't talk. Aaron said. So I'd be curious, Broncos, Chiefs defense. He's wondering should grab Raiders or Rams defense. Here's what Aaron had to say. Ride the Raiders defense. They've been really hot. Antonio Pierce has that defense looking so much better. So like if you want to go with one of those defenses, go with the Raiders defense. I'm with Aaron on this one. He's really good with that stuff, so I defer to him on that a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you. Basically, if you need a wide receiver, just pick it up.
That's fair.
Oh, it's been wild. Not heavyweights, we don't know. It's just like, hey, anybody who has a pulse over there in Green Bay who's playing. Yeah, he's been on fire, man. Like the touchdowns come and go. But the thing about that offense is it's going to give you one of the better options to support touchdowns because Matthew Stafford is playing at an elite level once again. So like interesting enough how we felt about him going into the year. I feel drastically different about Stafford. Like I want the pieces in that offense because everything looks like it's coming together so well.
The other thing too is like we got a couple of good matchups, right? So I don't see him on here. He can't be fully owned. But the Saints against Tampa Bay, we talked about Derek Carr. Give me all the Rashid Shaheed that I can handle this week. Like he absolutely crushed last week. He's a boom or bust option in a lot of cases, but I think against Tampa Bay, you're looking at boom options pretty much every single week. I need to go back and look at this data, but I imagine more often than not, you have guys who are absolutely going off on the Tampa Bay secondary. They've been atrocious. It's the reason Baker Mayfield has to throw a gabillion times a game. And we know that New Orleans, they're not utilizing Taysom Hill as much as they used to for whatever reason. That can always come back. But the tight ends in general, that unit hasn't been super reliable in terms of targets. It's been Chris Olave and nobody else except Rashid Shaheed seems to show up in some of these matchups. And we know Carr can throw the deep ball. Enough. So I love Shaheed there. And then from the Arizona wide receiver core, I don't know if it's Rondale or you want to go Michael Wilson if he's healthy, but they're playing Philly. I mean, those are two insanely good matchups there. Shaheed by far, but maybe a Rondale dart throw as well.
Yeah, and even in the last 4 weeks, they're still top 10 to points against wide receivers. So Tampa Bay still getting burned. It's kind of a recurring theme throughout the year. But if we even hype it down in the last month, it still has not been good for them. So yeah, 100% Shaheed. Yep. He's a guy to target. I think he's the perfect type of player to play where you have a solid lineup and you're chasing a little bit and you need a little boom. Mm-hmm. Similar like a Gabe Davis. You put that guy in your lineup, hope they hit. That's the Shaheed role. And I like going with that. But yeah, interestingly enough. Aaron's just talking about it. It's it's discount Gabe Davis, and discount Tyler Lockett. Oh, we're going to Tyler Lockett when he put up 50 against the Cardinals. I was like, yes, this is a good life. Not so much anymore, but we're working there.
Well, one more matchup I want to mention there too is the Texans, right? So I'm going to monitor and see where CJ Stroud is. He should be back, right? Like he should be throwing the ball all over the field. And I'm going to check out those wide receivers, right? If Nico is back, I'm gonna see where his health is all through the week. If he's back, it might not be a death knell for Noah Brown, right? If he's out there, I would just go grab him and stash him. If Stroud is there and Nico is out again, like that is a smash for Noah Brown. They're playing the Titans, so again, another plus matchup, and the Titans are going to be able to do enough. Should be able to do enough against Houston to score, keep that game competitive. So Stroud should keep throwing the ball. So that's a good stash for me as well, Noah Brown.
Yeah, I like that call. Because this would be the third week we miss him. Like, if you're missing 3 weeks for the concussion, like, you might as well just shut Stroud down at this point.
Yeah.
Because that is something serious, very serious. So I hope everything's okay with him. Yeah, and like if he's back, then like you're talking about, he's supported multiple options this year. We've seen it with Nico and Tank earlier in the year, and even a third guy like Brown would get involved then too. So yeah, 100%. If he's back this week, I feel much better about those options. And Noah Brown in particular, I won't care if Nico's back at all of that. I think Downs is an interesting one as well too, because the target volume is just absurd in that offense. Like when they pass, they're playing the Raiders, so it's very boom bust with Gardner Minshew. But like we've seen Pittman miss this last week, so keep your eye on Pittman. If he's out, then you have Josh Downs once again. Smash it up, and my whole family's trying to come into this room. So it's getting great.
One more deep league option. I don't love it, but I would throw a deep league dart at DJ Chark because he's available, right? He had a huge blow up game, but the bigger thing for me was that even though it was against Green Bay, the fact that DJ Chark went 6 for 8 for 98 and 2 scores it wasn't so much Chark, although Chark looked good. It was Bryce Young looked actually really good in that game, right? If he's kind of figuring it out and finding a little bit and continues to improve over the last few games of the season, Chark could be the beneficiary with Thielen drawing coverage, and they have a really nice matchup this week. Carolina does in Jacksonville, who has just looked really bad on D. So again, deep league option, but if he's there, you could take a shot.
Yeah, like there was life with that offense. So if there's life with that offense, like you want the wide receiver involved. And obviously at Green Bay, like you're talking about, their defense, pass defense has not been very good lately. Yeah. So it is what it is. But you could take either one of those options. If someone dropped Thielen maybe because they're so frustrated with him, or any one of those guys, like totally on board. Like you just ride it and hope it works out, because this is the make or break week. There's nothing else after this week unless you're one of the few leagues that's playing week 18. I don't have any leagues like that person. Do you have any leagues that are playing week 18 championships?
God, no. I did a year or two ago, and it was like the worst mistake ever, because I think maybe it was even earlier than that. I just remember, a couple of guys sitting. I think Stafford was a guy when he was on the Lions that they like were going into the playoffs, and it seems wrong. But it was somebody who was like they were shutting down guys and sitting them, and it happens less these days. But you just don't want to risk that potential option of studs getting extra rest. So no. How about you?
Yeah, it's no. I don't think I've ever had a championship in week 18. Like now that I'm reflecting upon it, like I can't remember a time where I've been like, oh yeah, I got a championship. Every time I've been like, thank goodness I've never had a championship. Because guys are getting benched. You don't know who's going to play. It's pure chaos. It feels like a very odd time for a championship, especially at a really good team, and they just shut everybody down. You're like, this sucks. Like, yeah, so I'm glad I don't have any leagues like that personally.
Yeah, if that's the case in your league, just make that change next year immediately. First thing, just week 17 is it. Cut it off.
Yeah, that's why we're like, I don't think we need to do a week 18 show.
We're good.
All right, let's move to tight ends. And Tucker Kraft, he's interesting enough. Like if Musgrave is back, I'm not sure if he's back, so I need to take a look at this. But he's top guy in an article, so. Tucker Kraft has been good in the time Musgrave has been out. So if you're looking for someone to step back into that role, Musgrave is the better tight end in that offense. He was the tight end above him. Unless he's getting Wally pipped, which I doubt he's getting Wally pipped, which is a reference for the old baseball people. Musgrave is a very interesting one to play in this week. Outside of him, we got the big names. We have the guys that are 70+%. We have Darren Waller, Isaiah Likely, Dalton Kincaid. And let me tell you, the Dalton Kincaid experience has been rough lately. So if he's available, I would just let him lie. Like I'm not going to go with Dalton Kincaid this week.
Agreed.
It's been awful. So for those pass catchers in general, the medium league options, Taysom Hill, who just burned the crap out of people. So he's just a roller coaster, right? So.
You just can't do it. At championship week, you can't. I mean, Taysom Hill was super consistent earlier in the year out of nowhere for like an 8-game stretch, but they stopped. Look, maybe he goes off and scores 3 touchdowns this week. It's certainly possible, but there's no way I'm putting him in my lineup. You just can't trust him right now.
Yeah, I would say if you were willing to play him last week, you should be willing to play him this week. But you just accept the range of outcomes with him is probably the biggest in football of anybody. Like he can put up 0 or he can give you 30, and you don't know where it's going to. Like it's literally just a sliding scale. We have no idea. And Aaron's saying, yeah, Musgraves are eligible to return, so still no word if he plays. So I would prefer Kraft up until we know just no information on this. Like Kraft's been good. If he's still available, grab him. But if Musgrave's back, then it becomes a conversation, right? You come back and you go there. When we get to the guys that are a little bit lower, we have Gerald Everett at 52%, Tyler Higbee at 52% as well. I think both are good options this week. We go to the deeper league options. Schultz is really interesting if Stroud comes back. Then we get the good quarterback with his pass catch tight end. And we've seen how Schultz was thriving earlier in the year. We have Musgrave at 27%, Tucker Kraft, so both Packers tight ends right there in the mid 20% for you. And the really true deep dart throws, we have Juwan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Michael Mayer. Who are these guys that kind of stand out of this list for you?
Yuck. I've been rolling with the Isaiah Likely experience, but it just kind of blew up in my face a little bit. I mean, not yardage wise, but he didn't get into the end zone, which is really what you need. And they were ahead surprisingly by a ton. The Ravens were, and they didn't need to utilize the passing game as much in the second half. And the Ravens again play Miami. Miami's defense has looked awesome the last month and a half here. So I just can't roll with Likely. I can't roll with Waller after last week. And like you said, Kincaid is dead to me. The guy I love here is Gerald Everett, right? There's just no weapons left. Easton Stick is surprisingly taking some shots down the field. But Gerald Everett is the beneficiary of those dump offs. He's looking for him in short yardage and over the middle. And if I really need a tight end that I need to rely on this week, outside of Gerald Everett, who is probably my number one, if CJ Stroud comes in, it's Dalton Schultz. Those two for me are far and away the best options. I don't want to mess with the Green Bay situation. It could be good, but if both are healthy and rolling, I'm out there. And Hunter Henry against the Bills, the Patriots, they keep winning, but we want them to lose. Like, let's just not continue that experience. I can't trust him. So for me, it's definitely Everett and Schultz above everyone else here.
Yeah, I think Everett's actually a really interesting one. They have a really good matchup this week against the Giants. So it's the Broncos. They are third in fantasy points allowed to tight ends the past month of football. So if you want to ride that lightning with both Easton Stick, who, backup tight ends or backup quarterbacks target tight ends higher rate just because it's easier to check down passes, right? So it kind of works out for him. He gets a good matchup. Interestingly enough, the one that surprised me is Cleveland is the worst in fantasy points allowed to tight ends the past month when they were lights out. They were literally just completely out. So I don't know what has happened to that defense. I'm assuming they're missing a few guys, and that has completely shifted how their defense is playing. So you could roll with Conklin this week. It's a really juicy matchup the past month. So if you need someone and you're desperate, Conklin's available in most leagues. People don't trust him. The Jets' offense is really just a disaster. But he has a good chance to touchdown. So I don't mind. Yeah, and that's what he said. He said Grand Delpit's gone.
Yeah,
and
I was just going to say Delpit. Yeah, that's a Delpit situation right there.
Yeah, so that completely shifts their defense. So like those two in particular, I like those guys as streamers. If you really just want to target the good offenses, it's either Packers tight end who's healthy. So keep those options open. Like we're not going to know until a few days until they announce it. Like if Musgrave's coming back, if not, you could ride Kraft. He's been solid, so you can go Kraft as well. But I think to your point, Everett has a much higher ceiling and could really be juicy for you.
Everett has had 8 targets in each of his last 3 games, so I'm riding that volume there with Everett.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. There's a couple other matchups if you want. If you're trusting against the Seahawks defense, which has been really successful, you could go Freiermuth this week. Just the whole Pittsburgh offense is it's really hard to trust that offense. But it's like the bad offense against a not so great defense. You'll get somewhere in the middle there. So it might work out with Freiermuth, who's been disappointing this year. He's still a good player. So if you want to go that route, you could go that route. But I just don't see a touchdown really in his future for that game. So I would prefer other guys. Is there anyone else you would prefer that's not on this list of tight ends?
No. The only thing that I would say is I'm sticking with Trey McBride after a super down week against Philly. They're going to need all the help they can get. He's going to get his targets once again, and I'm just going to roll him right back out there and expect him to produce like he has been, even if after a rough week last one.
Yeah, that's okay. Like players that have down weeks, like we see this, and Kelsey had a down week as well last week. It wasn't fully there. You just have to trust these guys. I mean, I think McBride still saw what was it, 8 targets. Like, you know, sometimes it just doesn't hit. That's okay. He's probably the best tight end situation in the NFL. Like, I don't.
What do you think about Pitts? Do you think Pitts is a top 6 option this week?
I mean, it's so hard to trust Pitts.
It
like,
is. I know.
Like once you get past the Ingrams and the Fergusons and the Goddards, like I think you could make a case for him. I'm probably gonna have him below like Komet and those guys. So I know projections will have Kincaid above him. There's no way in hell I'm playing Kincaid above him.
No, you can't. Not against Sweden.
Like that. That role is just it's a disaster. Like they're literally taking something really nice and they're like, hey, guess what? We're just gonna not focus on you. And that we've seen it with Diggs, and we've seen that offense just kind of just struggle where it's James Cook, and then Gabe Davis went off last week, so go figure. So I'm not really sure what's going on with Buffalo. Seems like they're kind of figure things out, but I mean they have Josh Allen, so you could always ride it if you trust Josh Allen. But man, it's so hard to trust him. He's just been completely uninvolved in the offense. So yeah, like I'd prefer Pitts over him in like the tight end 15-ish range, give or take. I haven't fully like finished my projections. Yeah, that's where we're at with Pitts.
Yeah.
And that's probably the highest I've had Pitts in like a month. Like I've dropped down to like tight end 20 each week where I'm like, dude, I can't with this guy. And then it's
4
just
targets in the last 2 games. Each in the last 2 games, it's terrible.
It's the Arthur Smith fun offense. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, get his ass. Fire his ass.
Yeah, his error about Pitts. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in tight ends, it seems so clear you either have a guy or you don't have a guy. Like there's, the guys that are good, and once you get past like tight end 10 to 12, it really starts getting real dicey. Where you're like,
well, the other thing too is Hawkinson. They said it's probably looking pretty bad. I don't know if they came out with the exact info on his injury, but they say the outlook is not good for TJ Hawkinson. So chances are you could be down a tight end looking for one. There's a couple of good options here this week.
Yeah, you could go the Chigaquanklos or like really bottom scrape if you wanted to. He wasn't bad last week, but overall we kind of have the guys we prefer on this list. And if any one of these like Waller's available, likely, or one of those guys is available, like an Everett, like I much prefer those guys. When you get down to the ends, it's kind of just like, well, say your prayers, hope it works out for you.
It's pray for a touchdown. Tanner Hudson, baby, let's go.
I mean, yeah, you could do worse. It's been so weird that one of those Bengals tight ends each week does something. You're like, all right, Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, whoever, I don't know. If they could just combine them into one player, and the ghost of Irv Smith too, right? Combine them into one player, they might have something, but it's not going to work out. I think probably with that, I think we covered everything. So I think we're probably good for the week. All right. So we're going to wrap up the week 17 waiver wire targets for this week. I wish you all the best of luck in your pursuit of a championship. Hopefully you're able to lock that down. For myself, Aaron, and Jeremy, we're out. So good luck, folks. And we will see you upcoming week where we target the games and cover the shows like we do at AFC on Thursdays and probably NFC on Friday, I think. So all right. Take care, folks.